Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for giving up your time to come and listen to an ageing retailer. I hope you find it interesting, and welcome to you all. On this first screen is a picture of my grandparents' store in about 1920 with the staff standing outside. We've been asked many times, I've no idea who they are, but there it is. That's one of the better pictures of the old store. Going on to the contents of this talk, because we're a family business, obviously the Uglow family history is interlinked with the company all the way through, so I'm afraid you're going to have to put up with some of us as well as the company. It goes on with the arrival in Chingford, my grandparents arriving in the early 20th century. There's quite a lot about buildings and shops we've occupied. There's the pre-war period, looked after mainly by my grandparents. The post-war period initially looked after by my late father and my late uncle. I've included quite a lot of advertising because we don't have that many images of all the shops. And finally, sadly, the closing down saga. So I'll go on now to the talk, and here we go. I'm starting this story with my great-great-grandfather. His name was John Thomas Peel. John was a renowned Victorian painter, specialising in portraits, landscapes and sentimental compositions featuring children. He, in the USA, however, his career flourished in the 1880s and 90s. His work was much favoured by Prince Albert, who brought several of his paintings. Gary, I've got to interrupt. I'm afraid the thumbnails of people on the right are covering up some of my text. Can you hear me? Gary, can you help me there? That's
Gary, are you muted?
Sorry, Peter. Yes, if you
slight hitch.
If you're able, you can go to the top of the thumbnails.
Yeah.
And click on the top left. It says hide thumbnail video. Can you see that? Hide.
Yeah, I'll get done it. Bit problem solved. All right.
Carry on.
Sorry, you all. Sorry for a little hitch there. So where am I? Okay. All right. We're back with John Thomas Peel, the artist. His work was much favoured by Prince Albert, who bought several of his paintings. In 1844, John married Sarah Elliott in Plymouth, and you can see these two images: a self-portrait of John and one of his wife, Sarah. They had two children, Laura and, wait for it, Elliott Correggio Peel. Correggio was named after the Italian Grand Master painter. He was naturally nicknamed Corey. See paintings of a teenage Laura sitting at the harpsichord on the left, and Corey posing for his father's composition of a young boy feeding the doves. In the meantime, for generations, the Uglow family had actually been bakers located in Plymouth, trading as R.C. Uglow and Sons, and subsequently as Uglow's Bakeries Limited. In 1872, William Uglow died, leaving the bakery business to his 22-year-old son, Richard. About this time, Richard met Laura Peel, daughter of the eminent artist, and they married a year later. Richard and Laura Uglow, my great-grandparents, went on to have no less than 9 children. Tragically, 6 of them died before the age of 2. However, they were survived by Ethel Laura Uglow, Harold Peel Uglow, and Frank Ernest Uglow. See the portrait of young Ethel at the age of 3, painted by her grandfather, and a studio photo of Frank, my grandfather. Richard's family baking business continued to prosper in Plymouth. There were a number of shops and a cafe, in addition to the bakery business. It was described as a model machine bakery making hygienic breads as recommended by Dr. Allinson. As for the family, Ethel subsequently married and emigrated to Australia, but Frank and Harold remained in Plymouth working in the business. However, Frank wasn't enjoying it. Getting up at 5 a.m. to bake bread and deliver the loaves to the shops on a wooden handcart naturally didn't suit him. So in 1901, he moved in with his uncle William Grigg, a draper in Clerkenwell. he soon takes a job in the drapery department of Boardmans of Stratford, the well-known East London department store. At Boardmans of Stratford, on a haberdashery counter, worked one Louisa Caton, known affectionately as Lulu. They were very soon a couple and married in 1911. My grandparents had already decided to open their own drapery business, but where? They were aware that a lot of moneyed people worked in the city, so they looked for the shortest railway line on a map from the square mile to green space, and yes, it was the Chingford line. They took a train to Chingford, admired the forest, the leafy avenues of fine houses, walked along Station Road, and soon decided this was the place for them. See this photo of them, and sadly I didn't have a good one of them when they were much earlier in life. This is really a very late image of them, but that's Frank and Lulu. They opened their first shop at 37 Station Road in 1910, moving into the flat above in 1911. They had their first son, Kenneth Frank Richard, my father, in 1914. However, although the business was doing well, Frank joined the army and joined the Great War, where he fought in the trenches. Lulu kept the business running through the war, Frank returning in 1918, the year their second child, Joan Lulu, was born. In 1920, they had their third child, Dennis Harold Uglow. My knowledge of the company during the 20s and 30s is obviously somewhat sketchy. However, we know from letter headings that they soon opened another shop at 3 station buildings and soon added 39 to 37 Station Road. Those 2 shops are now Lisa and Girls, I think hairdressers, and Coral Bookmakers on the corner of Stanley Road. At some point, all these were renumbered. Confusingly, 3739 became 7779 Station Road, and 3 station buildings became 90 Station Road, and that's now the Indian Brasserie. In this photo of 7779, note silks and gents department, linen and fancy draper advertised on the fascia. In the windows are ladies' wear, lingerie, bedwear, dress and furnishing fabrics. The premises has 2 front doors, one now closed, so they must have taken a wall down to sort of start to join the 2 shops together. At 90 Station Road, note Effie Uglow is advertising itself as a ladies' outfitter and baby linen specialist. This photo was taken during Empire Shopping Week, commencing 23rd of May, 1927. This national event was a result of a question asked by an MP in 1927. Sir C. Rawson asked the Prime Minister, it was Mr. Baldwin, whether he will consider an appeal to local authorities, traders and others throughout the country to organise an Empire Shopping Week, commencing 23rd of May 1927, Empire Day that was, in order to emphasise to the consumer in practical form the varied resources of the British Empire. Captain Garrow Jones replied, "Will the right honourable gentleman also consider, before spending public money in this way, that this class of middlemen is among the most prosperous in this community? And why should public money be spent on making them more prosperous? I think middlemen refers to us." When starting to research this talk, I was puzzled by references to 3 station buildings, as I knew nothing of Uglow's having a shop in the station yard. Looking on Street View, I noticed that 90 was the 3rd shop in its parade, that's between the White Houses and the post office. Then I remembered there used to be 2 stone upstands above the shops. Written on the first was station, and on the second, buildings. The upstand still remains above Virgo. Closer inspection revealed that the pillars on either side of the Indian Brasserie are in fact the very same as in our 1927 image of 90 Station Road you can see above. 3 weeks before Empire Shopping Week, Frank took on a long lease, 20 years that was, for 28 Station Road at £60 per annum. He started this in partnership with Frank Henningham, and they opened the fashion shoe store there. Their partnership was dissolved in 1929. However, we don't know how long that shoe business remained. Now, originally, 17 the Parade, 28 was part of the Chingford Rise estate. Due to the liquidation of the developers, George Newman and Company, the unfinished estate was sold at auction, and most of the properties were leased for as little as £22 a year. 17 the Parade went under the hammer on the 24th of June 1895. 28 Station Road is now the left-hand side of Tesco Express. You can see here the original catalogue pages, which I just discovered in the old deed box, showing the properties to be auctioned and a description of 17. It was let to Mrs. Barnes for £40 per annum, having a spacious workshop, a back entrance, and formerly used as a sorting room for the post office. Through the 1920s, F.E. Uglow, the company, continued to trade from 4 premises: 77, 79, 28 and 90 Station Road. Meanwhile, the family lived in a second floor flat in the eaves above 77, 79. My father Ken told me how he and a young Dennis would heat up pennies on the gas range and, using a pair of pliers, would drop them into the street. Passers-by who picked them up didn't hang on to them for long. This pre-war photo shows a Bear brand display of stockings. Yeah, stockings, a display in the right-hand window of 77 Station Road. It features what seems to be most of their range, starting from 2 shillings a pair. Note the brand Bear in the foreground. Frank, in earlier lease documents, is regularly described as a hosier. He managed to buy the freehold of 79 Station Road in 1933 for £2,000, and in 1938, 90 for £1,050. My father Kenneth followed in Frank's footsteps, starting apprenticeship at Boardman's of Stratford in about 1930, soon joining the family firm. In 1939, to support the war effort, Ken joined the Royal Army Service Corps. He was keen on beach life, but he wasn't expecting to be evacuated from the beach at Dunkirk, only to return to Juno Beach, Normandy on D-Day in 1944. In late 1943, he was posted to Lossiemouth in Scotland to train for the landings. He was picked up at the station by a Humber staff car, driven by one Gladys MacArthur. Some months later, Gladys returned to her billet, opened the door of her room to find no less than 12 bouquets of flowers waiting for her. She thought she'd entered a flower shop. It seems that Ken had managed to make use of a very infant interflora service and had sent her the flowers from where he'd been fighting in northern France. Ken and Gladys were married in 1947. Dennis, in the meantime, joined the Royal Navy at only 19 and soon rose to become the youngest captain on the North Atlantic convoys to Canada, finishing his war years in India. My grandparents and my Aunt Jane remained in Chingford, making a sterling job of running Uglows throughout the Second World War. In 1945, Ken and Dennis returned to Station Road, wondering how to move the business on in difficult times. This is the 77-79 post-war shop front that finally joined the 2 shops together, wrapping the windows round into Stanley Road. You can see the ladies' fashions, gloves and accessories, corsetry, household linens, and soft furnishings. But they were still using the very aged 1920s interior shop fittings. Here are 2 shots of the interior of Uglow's in the early 1950s, still with glazed counters, old wooden drawers, where nearly all the stock was in drawers and you had to be served over the counter. About all the self-service you can see is some ladies' wear on some hangers on the right. In 1953, a branch store was opened at 68 Church Road, South Chingford, featuring household linens, soft furnishing and hosiery departments. I've always felt subsequently how wise this was. They put my parents, my father and my uncle put a big effort into opening this store, but it did seem odd because it was only 2.5 miles away and a short bus ride from the shops we had in North Chingford. Here are 3 old letter headings which give a little bit of clue of shops coming and going. At the top you can see a very old letting heading from Frank and Lulu's day, showing 37 Station Road, that's the old numbering, and 3 station buildings, again the old numbering, giving you a clue of the sort of shop it was in those days. The next letter heading is from 1954, and here we have now the new numbering, and we have shops at 28, 54, 77, 79, and fairly new 68 Old Church Road. Finally, a later letter heading from 1959. Now you can see here that we only have 28, 77 and 79, and that 54 and 90 have gone. It also does mention that we still had the store in South Chingford. In those days, things were difficult for landlords, and this is why my family over the years were able to buy all 6 shops they owned at various times in Station Road as a freehold. Being a landlord in the middle or the early and middle 20th century wasn't really a great deal. The council controlled the rents, so landlords couldn't choose exactly what they were going to rent their premises for, and people renting the buildings enjoyed security of tenure. Now that meant that once they'd signed a lease, providing they paid the rent, they could pretty well hold on to that shop almost for the rest of their lives. So it became quite appealing at times for landlords to sell the freeholds to the incumbent retailer. Uglow's bought 77 Station Road, for example, from the landlord in 1950. But in 1953, 90 Station Road was sold to a Mr. King. He was a dancing instructor. He bought it for $3,150. I don't know when anyone can remember, certainly I do, King's dancing studio next to NatWest Bank. Soon after that, 54 Station Road was sold to one Francis Wallace. He opened one of the first of his Wallace supermarkets. Well, that was a new American idea. This was the first day of the January sale in 1954. Here's the shop front at 77, 79. And I can remember in the early 50s as a young 4 or 5 year old, looking out of the window from the flat. You can actually see the flat we lived in, the dormer window at the top there up in the eaves. But we had all windows round the side overlooking Stanley Road. And I can remember one of these sales, the queue reaching all the way down Stanley Road almost to the railway. These were difficult times. Shortages were still going, coupons. It was tough, and a lot of people couldn't buy the merchandise that they needed. And I always remember my father taking the company van and driving up north to a mill and filling it with dozens and dozens of blankets. He appeared back in Chingford, unloaded the van, only to be told by my grandfather, for goodness sake, fold one of those blankets up as small as you can, put it in the corner of the window with the smallest price ticket, otherwise we're going to be mobbed. In the mid-1950s, a brand new ladies and children's wear department was opened in the main store. This is the leaflet that was produced to promote the new department, stocking nightwear, dresses, knitwear, blouses, skirts, babies and children's wear, haberdashery, and I quote, bespoke, delicate lingerie and corsetry by qualified fitters. I think I need to explain that. We did actually have a bespoke corset service. You could go into Uglow, ladies could go into Uglow's, be measured, have a corset manufactured particularly for their needs and delivered to them a few days later. I just couldn't resist including this, one of my favourite pictures of those days, of a salesgirl topping up the hosiery bar. I don't think I've ever seen quite so many pairs of stockings in one photograph. As shown in the earlier stockings window, we always employed a professional window dresser. Here is a back to school window. If you look closely at the blackboard, you see that some unfortunate child has been given lines, has had to write out time after time, "We must get our clothes at Uglow's." You can see brands Childproof on the right for children and Bairnswear for babies and children on the left. Here is a silhouette swimwear display in 77's window from the 1950s, and we can see, yes, bikinis are starting to arrive for young ladies already. Chingford certainly wasn't behind. This is one of my another favourite picture of mine from those days. This is in Uglow's in the 1950s. For Christmas, we used to install a small Christmas grotto in the back of the soft furnishing department, which is on the left-hand side of 77-79 Station Road. How this was set up was that my father would employ a Father Christmas. He would take him by car to Hymes Park Station, put him on the steam train heading for Chingford. In advance, we'd advertised that Father Christmas would be arriving at Chingford Station at, say, 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning. Crowds of children would be waiting outside the station to welcome him. He would come out and we'd have either a pony and trap or a veteran car waiting in the station yard for him. Quite often with a young 4-year-old Peter Uglow sitting in it. The children, we would then proceed down Station Road back to 77-79, and the children would literally run all the way down the pavement looking forward to their 1 shilling lucky dip in Uglow's. I just ought to mention, while we still got that on the screen, that opposite there you can see a couple of shops. The one with a semicircular striped blind is Brimble's, the stationers, and the one on the right is 54 Station Road, which was ours, but that's a bit of a mystery one because we know very little about 54 Station Road and what exactly Uglow's was selling there over the years. I can remember in 1954 as a 5-year-old coming down from the flat at the back of 77-79 Station Road. It actually was a fire escape down into a little postage stamp garden we had. And I got up early one morning, went down and found broken glass all over the lawn. Turning around, I saw the bay window on the back of my father Kent's office. Looking in through the window, I can see the very large steel safe we had turned on its back, where someone had been drilling holes round in a square like a postage stamp to try and break into it. I think it's fair to remind everyone that in the 1950s, nearly every purchase that was made in Uglow's was done with cash, and all the staff were paid by cash. So cash handling was a big thing. So safe breaking was also a big thing. So that unfortunate safe that they didn't get into, when it was moved over to 28 Station Road many years later, was actually concreted into the wall to make sure this didn't happen again. In the late 1950s, Dennis Uglow took interest in expanding 28 Station Road to take advantage of the growth in fitted carpets. In 1959, Uglow's extended 28 Station Road to cover all the garden down to the rear outbuilding. The new enlarged carpet shop took off, but Dennis had grander plans to emulate the National Carpet Centre in Leicester Square and create Uglow's Carpet Centre. 2 years later, it was ready to open. It featured a 20-foot deep glazed arcade, a new shop front, and was 110 feet deep, fitted out with all the latest self-selection carpet and lino displays. In the late 1950s, Ken Uglow, my father, approached a London agency asking for help with some local advertising. We were too small for them, but they introduced us to one of their guys, one John Shire, who agreed to work for us privately, and he was given a free hand to create ideas beyond the average local press advertising. And here's one of his early studio shots, advertising our curtain fabrics. Notice two models which keep appearing in several leaflets we're going to see later. John's idea to promote the opening of the new carpet centre was to invite a couple, typical Uglow's customers, to be picked up from their home in a chauffeur-driven car, taken up to Uglow's, where they'd be shown around the new carpet centre and would be the first people to buy anything there. They would get a free carpet. They would be a photo shoot at all stages, and they would then be entertained to lunch out with Dennis Uglow. Here they are being picked up by a chauffeur-driven car. I think it's a Vauxhall Cresta. And John Shire, the advertising agent, that's him standing in the background. Here are some pictures of Mr. and Mrs. O'Brien enjoying their somewhat photographed visit to the store to buy their new carpet. You can see if you look on the left-hand shot, you can see the very long carpet showroom disappearing into the distance. Carpet samples on the left, and a table where they can sit and browse through. And there they are admiring some pictures of room schemes on the right-hand side. There was a champagne opening of the new store. You can see on the right-hand side Dennis Uglow and my father Ken, and they're entertaining some local dignitaries, I suspect who might be the mayor and his wife, but I'm not sure. That carpet department really went from strength to strength, and for most of the history of Uglow's from 1964 onwards, the carpet department really was the strongest part of the business. The contract flooring side was also built up substantially by Dennis, and here you can see the van being loaded with vinyls going out to furnish some new business somewhere. The contract flooring side was really growing very fast, and we were supplying carpets, lino and blinds to lots of factories and offices across the southeast. John Shire's next idea to promote the carpet department was slightly interesting. He decided that we would gather up a number of 27-inch by 54-inch carpet samples, and we need somewhere to display them. So they got permission from Epping Forest to use Queen Elizabeth's hunting lodge as a backdrop. Well, they arrived with professional photographers, lighting, two models, and well, actually they're not models, they're actually Dennis Uglow's best friend and his girlfriend, to pose for the shots. They attached, well, can I say, nailed the samples to the front of the hunting lodge. At this point, the verger of Epping Forest, I think his name was Quist, arrived on horseback, absolutely furious. Well, sort of who blames him? We just nailed carpet samples into this historic monument. We removed them swiftly, copious apologies, but the good news was we had the shot in the can. You can see from this how cheap carpet was in those days. You could buy a Wilton carpet for as little as 25 shillings a square yard. While Dennis was building up the carpet business, my father Ken was working hard to expand soft furnishings and linens in the left-hand side of 77-79. By the late 50s, we were fitting loose covers to over 6 three-piece suites a week. And here is part of a leaflet featuring curtains and carpets. Uglow's was starting to look like the furnishing store you may remember. Well, here is another John Shire's unusual ideas for some furnishing photography. The next brochure idea was to hang a range of fabrics from some scaffolding somewhere. A building site was found at 34B Connaught Avenue. Professional models employed, the same two you've seen before, fabrics hung, but it was too windy. And a terrible delay went on while we waited for the wind to drop so we could get the shot. But eventually, Prior and Taverner's builder was dispatched up the ladder. The wind dropped, we got the shot, and there we were. Please note an 11-year-old Peter Uglow with a broken bucket in the foreground. Here's John Shire's very 60s leaflet promoting the new self-service hosiery bar. Yes, that big ladies department you saw opening a few years earlier, finally Uglow's had installed a self-servery bar, which really did improve figures in the department. But also note John's rather amusing line at the top there, wanted 100,000 ladies and girls with beautiful legs living within 1 mile of Chingford. In 1963, Barton's the Bakers on the corner of Willow Street closed their bakery. In fact, their bakery had been closed for some years, but they decided that they would sell the bakery, and Uglow's, I beg your pardon, that they would let the bakery, and soon Uglow's leased the rear of 26 Station Road. We had to remove ancient ovens, and we installed new double doors onto Willow Street and broke through into 28 Station Road, building an open staircase up to the first floor. Here is the original view, and note on the left Jackie Warren's old shoe repair workshop at the rear. Soon Uglow's new bed department opened there with stocks of beds and headboards stored on the first floor, and local customers could come in and buy single double beds from Vicepring and Slumberland and all the well-known makes, and the department got off to a very successful start. In 1967, I was sent off to college to study furnishings and interior design in preparation for my inevitable return, I think, to the business. I then went on to work for 4 different stores around London. I started off at Heels in Tottenham Court Road in the curtain department, went on to work for a 2-storey linen store in Regent Street called Robinson and Cleaver. Then I went to work for a furnishing department store in Camden Town called Bowman's of Camden Town, and eventually returned to Heels to work for Heels Contracts, where I remained for some time. I thought at this stage it's good to update you with who the company directors were at this time. Here are 2 photos from the 1960s. On the left are my parents, Ken and Gladys Uglow, and Dennis Uglow and Sue on the right. Here is a collage of all the company logos that we'd had over the years. As each decade seemed to go on, it seemed appropriate to change the image of the company, change the logo on the shop front, on the vans, on the stationery, and here are 8 of them. Next door to 30 Station Road was Bethel's the Butchers. During a chance conversation in 1970, Mr. Bethel let slip to my father that he was thinking of closing down. We took this opportunity, contacted the landlord, and once again managed to buy the freehold. Soon there was an archway between 28 and 30 Station Road, and Uglow's opened their fitted bedroom showroom. In late 1971, I was at home. My father came home and over dinner said he'd been out that day to a warehouse and that he'd bought 35 gas lamps and 100 gas refills for them. Slightly puzzled, I said, "Father, what were you doing?" He said, "Well, I've read in the papers that the miners' strike is looking very serious. The government, as you've probably seen, the government's announced that we may be heading for a 3-day week when we're going to be without electricity and most of the shops are going to be in darkness most of the afternoon in Station Road. So I've got these gas lamps just in case. And so, yes, of course, the three-day week did come. Most shops in Station Road had to close, but Uglow's, we managed to hang gas lamps all across the ceiling, light the store up sufficiently, and we carried on trading. In 1972, I was at the end of my tour around the West End, and I was working for Heels Contracts in Tottenham Court Road. But it had gone slightly wrong for my father because I got myself a really good job furnishing executive suites in the City of London. This was rather good fun. I was going from one company to another and thoroughly enjoying myself working in the West End. But that summer, while on holiday, I received a telegram from my father which said, and I quote, carpet manager leaving 28th, who can I contact at Heels to arrange your earliest departure? Well, I wasn't too pleased about this, so I sent a rather curt reply. Father, I think I'm going to reorganise my career on my return. However, by September that year, at the age of 23, I was back in Chingford, manager of carpet beds and bedroom furniture. Uglow's did feel only slightly old-fashioned to me after working in Heels. And I'll mention how all the family was known by the staff. Dennis of Uglow was known as Mr. Dennis. My father was Mr. Kenneth. I was Mr. Peter. And would you believe my mother was Mrs. Kenneth? Well, now, what's this, you may ask? Right, narrow width carpet. Just after the Second World War, in the 1950s, a large number of homes in Chingford would only have had a carpet square, a large rug in the lounge with a lino or woodblock surround and just some 27-inch woven carpet on the stairs held on by stair rods or stair clips. So as the fashion started to get going in the 1950s for fitted carpet, what was happening a lot of the time before broadloom wide carpets arrived was that companies were sewing the 27-inch stair carpet together to fit people's lounges. So we started doing this for ourselves. Dennis removed the wall between what had been the two top bedrooms in 28 Station Road and installed a sort of carpet factory. He hung chains from the ceiling with clips every yard or so. And we used to lift up 27-inch carpet face to face, as we called it. That's the pile facing each other. And we'd clip it from the ceiling. So we'd had 27-inch carpet hanging face to face, probably 33 feet long from one end of the workroom to the other. And then this machine you're looking at is actually a carpet sewing machine. It would be put over the top of the carpet, and we wound a handle which is on the back of it in this image, and it would slowly work its way along the carpet, sewing it together. It was nicknamed the hurdy-gurdy, and it was most unpopular because it was terribly unreliable, and we forever had to have an expert coming in to service it. And now go on to quite an interesting story. A few years ago, my wife and I were invited to take the family paintings, some of which you saw earlier, to the Antiques Roadshow at Leamani Tower in Essex. While they were going around the house looking at the paintings, they spotted this sewing machine on display and said, please, can you bring it along? Now, you may not know this, but at the Antiques Roadshow, they have a mystery table. They have a round table, and they sit 5 of the experts, the people you see on television, around it, and you bring along your interesting item. I brought this and put it in the middle, and they have to try and work it out what it is. Well, they worked out it was a sewing machine, but I'm afraid all 5 experts failed to work out it was a carpet sewing machine. Now, in late 1973, storm clouds were gathering in the UK economy. A recession was on. It was getting fairly bad, and things were changing for us. Not only that, but the big ladies department we'd opened in the mid-1950s was slipping. Marks and Spencer's were becoming the major player in this area, and they were taking business away from us big time. And This was a nationwide thing. They were extremely good at what we were doing. And so figures were falling there. At the same time, we were coming up for a new lease renewal for 68 Church Road, the South Chingford store. So really, we were at a bit of a crossroads. A difficult decision was made by the directors to sell 77-79 Frank and Lulu's original store. They were going to close beds and bedroom furniture and move linens and soft furnishing into 26 to 30 opposite. At the same time, the decision was made to close the branch store at South Chingford, about which I'd always had my reservations anyway. In March 1974, the original store was duly sold and linens and soft furnishings were moved over Station Road to 26 to 30, and a new double-fronted shop front was installed. This rather poor photo shows the new shop front much later, just before it was replaced. We were now just a furnishing store, very much majoring in linens, soft furnishings and carpets, but we really were moving all of those on and really becoming quite successful in this new thing of being just a furnishing store. In March 1975, sadly, my uncle Dennis Uglow passed away at the young age of 54. Together with his brother Ken, he'd overseen the change in the company from Frank's almost 19th century drapers to a 20th century modern store. In the late 1970s, Uglow's joined AIS, Associated Independent Stores. This was a voluntary buying group. I must explain that we hadn't been taken over. We joined a club, a nationwide club of department stores and stores. We paid a subscription every year to support us in many ways. They had about 150 members with over 250 stores nationwide. Pearson's of Enfield being the nearest. AIS had a newly built £4.5 million head office, complete with its own exhibition halls. The group negotiated special terms with most of our suppliers, together with own label ranges to enable us to compete with national groups. You may still have knocking around some old towels or sheets with our first impressions labels on. They supplied promotional material for our windows and colour leaflets for door-to-door distribution. We would attend at least 6 shows a year for a couple of days each. AIS, though not visible to the public, helped us to trade successfully for over 30 years. Moving on from that, in the mid-1970s, I was asked to get involved in Chingford Carnival. It was actually the last Chingford Carnival. Some of you remember that it was an annual event for many years, but this was the very last one. I'd been asked to drive a friend's Triumph Stag, a rather strange coloured lime green Triumph Stag with Uglow's logos attached to the side and a large brown carpet remnant in the passenger seat. I was to drive behind the marching band proceeding down Station Road. Behind me in the car, standing up in the middle, holding the roll bar, was Miss Waltham Forest, and either side of her sat one of her ladies in waiting. We left Forest Avenue and made our way very slowly. It's quite difficult driving behind a marching band at 3 miles an hour down Station Road. And I was very amused to hear Miss Waltham Forest turn to one of her ladies in waiting and say, "Go on, wave at all the North Chingford snobs." In 1988, with help from AIS, we completely refurbished the store end to end. We'd failed to negotiate a lease for the rear of 26 Station Road, the old bakery, so we extended 30 Station Road to the end of the garden to match the one at the end of 28. This gave us the large rectangular store, 36 feet wide by 110 feet deep. That's the space you may recall. We also halved the length of the glazed arcade at the front to give us more selling space. Here is an image of the 1980s carpet department with new waterfall displays and oriental rugs. My father, Ken Uglow, retired in the early 80s. However, he still liked to spend time in the store. He would come in regularly in a blazer and a military tie, sit and do some paperwork, and he really enjoyed chatting up the staff. Sadly, he passed away in 1998 at the age of 84. For the new millennium, we opened our new cookshop department. This went in which used to be the rear part of our soft furnishing department, and it was a bit of a wasted space. We decided we could do much more with it, and I got the idea from AIS that this would be a good thing to do. My wife Lorna helped me with the buying at AIS, and we opened some months later, stocking cookware, utensils, cutlery, gadgets, porcelain and china. It added a lot to our offer and helped to increase footfall into our store. I just wanted to, excuse my little pause there, I just wanted to add that at the same time as opening this, we expanded our gift department at the front of the store. We opened a little candle store, candle department, moved on into gifts, and particularly at Christmas, this became quite a busy department from us. And I spent many a happy time going to NEC in January. We had to go in January to buy Christmas gifts for the following December. And really, at the same time as the cookshop was taking off, so was gifts. So these were two smaller but more interesting departments for us to get into after being just the original furnishing store. Now we're going to show you a short video.
In 2007, we put a new shop front, a new face on the company, which was overdue really. Was very pleased with that. New window beds, it all looked fresh and new, well fitted out, and a brand new carpet department right across the back, which set the store off, and that new carpet department took off with a bang. I think in the first 3 months we increased turnover in the carpet department by over 200%. So we were really pleased. And then 2008 happened. There we were, with really a successful business, a good looking store inside and out, an excellent reputation, a great crowd of customers, great crowd of staff, and I have to say they were very good times. Banking crash, 2008. It wasn't only the banks that crashed, our figures started to crash. Things were looking more tough. And I had decided that I was happy to run on this business on until I was 65 or maybe 67. At that time I was 58. And I spoke to lots of friends of mine in business, people in the city, who said this recession is going to run and run. Not going to do the usual 18 months, it's going to be 5, 6, 7 years. And I thought, well, I'm going to be trading, possibly losing money, not being so successful, and going through all the pain you go through in a serious recession in retail. And things were looking pretty rough winter 2008, 2009, and my wife and I were on a sunshine break in the Canaries, and I just looked at her and I said, you know, we don't have to do this anymore. And we made a very difficult decision that after, yes, 100 years, we were going to close down. And so we came back, looked into how to market the company. We got 3 different commercial estate agents look at the business. We chose one, and we obviously sadly couldn't tell our staff, but we decided that they would quietly market the property, and they came to see me on a Tuesday evening, and I gave them the company we'd chosen the job, and off they went and said they were going to market the premises discreetly, online only. And they phoned me at 11 o'clock on the Wednesday, the next day, to say you've got Tesco's. It happened that quickly because I think they'd already prepared the ground, and there we were off and away. So we'd made the decision, we were on the way, and over the next year, negotiations went on, continued with Tesco's, and then eventually we broke the news to the staff. This was becoming then a very emotional and difficult time. I was the man overseeing the closure of a successful family business that had looked after 3 generations extremely well, and this was difficult. I should never forget the day we met with the staff. We sent them home with a letter one night and said that there would be an extraordinary meeting at 9 o'clock the following day, and that the store wouldn't open until 10. And they all bolted. I bowled into the carpet department at 9 o'clock, where all my staff was there, and bearing in mind we had lots of part-timers, there were 15 of us. And I stood and literally with a tear in my eye told them that we were closing. And very emotional moment, lots of tears from them, and there it was. But to their credit, they took the bull by the horns, supported the company right through everything that needed to be done in the few months moving up to the closing down sale in June 2010. I cannot be more grateful for what they did. Not only did they come in and work in the sale, and so did members of my family, but lots of those members of staff brought members of their families in to help out, and everyone worked like Trojans, and I'm eternally grateful. But it was a difficult and emotional time for myself and for my wife, and my wife Lorna, and but we soldiered on. The closing down sale was enormously successful. We employed a company to manage the sale for us. This is quite common. And what they did was we closed the carpet department. We couldn't measure and sell carpets, obviously, in a closing down sale, and the same with the soft furnishing department. So we converted the store basically into a large linen and cook shop warehouse. That was it. 2 sides of the store. One was all cook shop, one was all linens. And it was filled with super cheap merchandise, very attractive to anyone coming down to the closing down sale. The company that ran it arranged to send out personal invitations to everyone on our database, i.e. all our known customers, and there were 9,000 of them. And they were invited to a preview, which was the first 2 days of the sale, which was a Wednesday and a Thursday. Started at 10 o'clock in the morning and ran through till 8 at night. And I just hadn't predicted, or no one had any idea how successful it was going to be. It was extraordinary. The queue to the front door ran almost the length of Willow Street. There were hundreds of people out there. It was a heat wave. The air conditioning was working overtime. The people running the store said, right, we'll open at 10 o'clock. In they came. We had to have bouncers on the door because not all those hundreds of people couldn't get in at once. We had to hold back crowds of people. We were running 2-3 checkouts in the store, but it was so packed it took well over an hour to queue and pay. And it was just extraordinary. The first 2 or 3 days was the main push. That obviously we weren't going to get those numbers much after that, and it fell away. The management company that was doing it was smart, because what they did was they kept reducing the size of the store. As the amount of stock reduced, they kept moving the units closer and closer to the front door, until in the end we were just quite a small shop at the front that was left. And I have happy memory of when we actually closed the store on the very last day. I've got photographs of that. We identified the last customer in 100 years ever. We gave her a present of a cutlery service, and away she went, and we locked the door for the last time. I have to say that was an very emotional moment for me. It was a mixture of sadness and looking forward to what seems like might be a comfortable retirement. But more important, I think, was losing that contact with all those excellent customers and all the excellent members of staff. Then followed about a month of clearing the store out, and in the end it was one large open space. It's extraordinary, because it no longer felt like Uglow's, but it looked like a sort of basketball court, empty and echoey, and quite sad really, but there we are. And so by the end of July 2010, that was it, we were finished. But for several years after that, when returning to Chingford, I was always being stopped by people in Station Road, being stopped, saying, "Hello, Mr. Uglow, nice to see you. We do miss your store." And there's hardly a week goes by when I don't meet somebody. And I'm sitting here in Matching Tyre, and I shouldn't forget, I'm a member of the Matching Tyre Classic and Sports Car Club, and I went to one of their meetings when I first joined it, in the pub opposite here. And one people said, "What's your name?" I said, "Peter." He said, "Uglow? I know that name. We used to be in your shop all the time, but I've never met you." But we always knew that store was ran by somebody who cared.
Well, I'd just like to thank you all for sitting through, listening to all of that. And I'm just, to finish things off, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the very end. I did get an awful lot of gifts, letters and good wishes at the end as we closed. But one of them that was outstanding was, unfortunately, it was anonymous, but somebody actually put a poem in an envelope through our door. And I'm going to read it to you now. "Oh, Mr. Uglow, what can we say? You brought about a very sad day. Having curtained and carpeted many a home, how will we manage without you, we moan? With always the staff so helpful and kind, a shop like yours will be hard to find. Ladies could browse with leisurely pace. It's not quite the same shopping at home base. Goodbye to the china, the glass and the pans. Did you realise you had so many fans? Things won't be the same in this Chingford street when you retire and put up your feet. It's such a shame it will be no more. And many thanks for your elegant store." Thank you.
Okay, Peter, fantastic. Thank you very much indeed for a fascinating talk. And if I might say, a personal journey for you as well, and very emotional there towards the end. Thank you very much indeed for the insight to Uglow's and the stores since 1910. I really would like to throw out to those people watching today, if there's anyone out there that'd like to ask Peter a question, please type it into the chat on the chat button on Zoom, and we can give those questions out to Peter now. But I've got a couple of questions, Peter. First of all, you know, do you put the success of Uglow's down to the fact that there wasn't much competition in the high street at the time, or was there? Tell me, you know, how you stood up against the rest of the high street.
Well, I think I'm not sure we stood up against them because we were mainly selling goods most of them weren't selling. And of course, through most of our career, you could buy almost anything in Station Road. You know, that quote from my father, it was a bit like a department store with a road running down the middle. So I'm not sure competition was the big issue. Yeah, no, not really.
Okay, I did notice what was fascinating for me anyway was the change in fashion from the 50s and watching those change through the years. And it seemed that Uglow did spend a lot of money on marketing and especially the shop fronts. Was that part of the reason for the success?
I think so. I mentioned that advertising agent John Shire. He was a huge influence after the war. Door-to-door advertising was in its infancy, and we were in there quite early on, and that helped expand the business quite a lot. And I think as a family, we're always keen to try and have a good-looking window and shop front.
Sure. Okay. Are there any questions out there that anyone would like to raise for Peter? You can do so now on the chat function. I'm just going to grab your screen, if I may, Peter, and show my screen, if
Right.
that's okay with you. My screen's coming up now. So I'd just like to once again thank you, Peter, for a great presentation today. I think we should also mention Acorn Films. Acorn Films did allow us to show the snippets of video that you saw of the closing down sale and some of the store just prior to that. That was provided by David Piggott, so I'd like to thank him for that on behalf of CHS. I would just like to ask those people out there that those that aren't members, if you'd like to join Chingford Historical Society, please do so via our website. We've got our membership form on there. Also, to become a follower, very easy. We're on all the social media platforms, or most of them anyway. And we've got Chingford Historical on Twitter, Chingford Hist, so you can go there and look at our weekly tweets. We've got a great Facebook page as well, where people often comment on there and send us questions. And also we've got, just opened today, our new Instagram account as well. Just by the way, if you haven't got any questions for Peter today, if you think of anything you'd like to ask Peter, do send it in to us via our social media or via chingfordhistory.org.uk, our website, and we can pass those questions on to Peter for him to answer later. We are, in fact, recording this session, so in a couple of days, we'll be uploading it to our YouTube channel. So if you've got friends or family out there that would like to watch this presentation again, they can watch that in a couple of days' time. Our next talk is on the historical tour of Norfolk. That's taking place on the 15th of October at 7 p.m. Members will be linked to that. Non-members will need to go to Eventbrite to register. And the talk is by Alison Goulter, and that's taking place on the 15th of October at 7. Just remember though, for members, we are going to follow that with an AGM. Other news for everyone out there, our new autumn newsletter is going out in the post next week. That will go out to all members. We will also at some point be putting that on the website for you to view it. Got some great articles in there. And also we have an obituary on David Young. That'd be an interesting read for those people that knew him. We've also got the AGM papers going out next week as well. So those members will receive the AGM papers and the Historical Society newsletter. We're also featuring on a weekly basis now in the local Guardian, the Chingford Guardian. We're in there every week. We've got an article on Chingford now and then. So effectively what it's about is we'll show up an old photograph of Chingford. We'll show a new one comparing the old and the new, and a story about the article that it relates to. So that's on a weekly basis now in the Guardian newspaper. And of course, you can access the Guardian newspaper online as well now. And just to say, yes, we've got our new Instagram account. So please have a look at that. That's at Chingford History. So you can go and have a look at that as well. On a final note, I suppose, really, we are all about providing members and the wider public with different types of talks, not only local, but national talks and international as well, I suppose. But if you've got any ideas for a talk, perhaps you've got an idea in mind that you'd like to collaborate with us on, please do get in touch. You know, we're here to help you research and work with you to create a talk that would be of interest to those people out there that enjoy local history. Likewise, if you've got any old photographs of Chingford or of any material that could be of any interest to us, please do get in touch, either via inquiries@chingfordhistory.org.uk or just give me a call and we can talk through those items that you've got. So that's it really for this evening. Once again, a big thank you to Peter Uglow for his fascinating talk today, and we'll look forward to seeing you all next month for our next talk. Thank you very much indeed, and we'll speak to you all. Before I go though, I want to hand over to Joanna in case she's got anything I may have missed. Joanna.
They caught me on the hop.
Yes.
No, nothing to add. I think you've covered everything. It was really interesting, and I always feel that we should unmute ourselves to clap.
Yes.
Because it's such it's strange for the speaker not to have any clap at the end. So.
Thank you.
Honestly, and what I liked as well, I am interested in photographs, and you had some fantastic photographs of Station Road. You know, a moment in time back in the 50s, and fascinating to see that. Also to see the Father Christmas photograph. That was also an era that's long past, I'm afraid. Just one last question for you, Peter. You mentioned about the Chingford Carnival. When did that finish, the carnival?
Oh, that would have been, well, I can only say it was late 1970s. I would think that was probably, I would guess about 1978. I don't know exactly.
Right. Okay. Interesting. I've just come across some old Chingford Carnival footage, which I think is on one of the Acorn films. We'll have to show that at some point. Just out of interest, those people still watching, at Christmas, not sure the date, 10th of December, we're aiming to show some of the Acorn films from the 50s, 60s and 70s.
Oh, great.
So if you're interested, please do subscribe to that. We'll be sending out information on that in November. But yes, we're doing a film night. Grab your popcorn and you can sit back, relax and watch some of the old archive films from the 50s, 60s and 70s recorded by Acorn Films. And that's, again, with the blessing of David Piggott from Acorn Films. Okay, with Peter, we've had a couple of comments back, people saying, thank you very much, Peter, very interesting. That's from Patricia Ovenden. We've had one from Jane McCormack. Thank you, Peter. From an older, what does this say? Hold on, from an older Saturday girl. Well, that's
yeah, she worked for us. I remember Jane.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Any others there? I'm just looking now. I've just lost the chat. Can you see the chat there, Joanne?
Yeah, we've got one from Alan Crown. Thanks, Peter. Very interesting. Brought back many memories and some interesting parallels with my own business. And also Alexandra Ross, fascinating talk. Thank you, Peter. Many happy memories of your excellent store.
There you are. Feedback is good. Okay. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining us at Chingford Historical Society. Thank you for your support. And we do look forward to seeing you.
Gary, can I just say something that might be a little bit out of turn here, but actually watching tonight, and I can see her at the moment, is one of our most valued members of staff, one Dilys Dodd. So I want to send her my regards and thank her for listening. There she is.
Yes,
she's waving.
Dilys, hi to you. This is Gary Stone. Thank you for joining us today. That was very kind of you to come down. Do spread the word about Chingford Historical. I mean, look, we get the best stars on here. We've got Peter Uglow. You can't get better than that, really. So we've got Peter Uglow on. But again, I do express to everyone, if you've got any talk ideas, please get in touch with us. You know, any ideas that you've got, any material that you might have, then we can do some more great, fascinating talks like this, because it was an absolutely fantastic talk today. So I am going to sign off now. I'm going to say goodbye to you all, and we'll catch up again next month. Okay, thank you and goodbye.
Bye.